Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
24 hours in the haunted hotel challenge.
No.
No.
That is the crunchiest chicken.
Good for you, Jollibee. Good for you.
Everyone has been saying that my audio peaks in the intro, so here we go. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie, and today we are back with another dun-dun mukbang. Whoa.
You're gonna whisper?
No, welcome back. So today we're gonna be eating some Jollibee, which if you guys don't know, Jollibee is a fast food joint from the Philippines. We've got 6 pieces of super fried, crispy, spicy chicken. We've got 2 mango peach pies. We've got a halo drink. 7 pieces. Mm-hmm. It usually comes with 6 pieces. Ooh. And then here we have the spaghetti, which is not like a normal spaghetti. It kind of has a bit of a more of a tomatoey, ketchupy flavor, and it's a tiny bit sweet. We've got a bowl of gravy. We've got 2 fried chicken sandwiches in the back, and I'm also going to leave in the description because the Philippines right now, they're going through some tough times with the volcanoes. So I'm going to leave some links in the description on how you guys can help and just to keep you guys updated, and please send your prayers that way. So I think I'm going to start with the fried chicken. This is my favorite fried chicken joint, which sounds weird because I don't know if is that what they're known for? Are they known for their fried chicken?
I love their fried chicken.
That's your input. That is your educational, amazing input that you have.
Honestly.
Yeah. Is it the best?
KFC got nothing on Jollibee.
Wow.
Popeye.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, this is good. Why is it so good?
How do they get it so juicy on the inside? That's what I want to know. Wow. It's so spicy. I feel like the spaghetti in the beginning, I hated it. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I know I triggered so many people when I said I used to hate Jollibee spaghetti. But the more I have it, the more I feel like I can't go to Jollibee without getting some spaghetti. It's good. Wow.
Is Jollibee in the East Coast yet?
Or at least I know it's not in like the South. I don't know. We are so quiet.
No, this time you're gonna eat it correctly, right? With a straw.
Wait, no, with the spoon. With the spoon. Last time I tried to stick a straw in here and drink it like it was freaking boba. It is not. Okay, let's try this fried chicken burger, and then we're gonna get into today's stories. Okay.
Wow, these chickens.
Wow, I've never seen such barbarian spaghetti grabbing in my entire life.
Really? I was trying to be classy and nice about it.
Pinkies up. Okay, the fried chicken burger. I think this is my first time having it from Jollibee. Not as amazing. I feel like it's not that good.
This is good.
What?
Oh my god, look at how juicy the chicken is.
Look at that.
That is so
this is
weird.
so good.
What?
The flavor is different, but the chicken itself too is very juicy.
I'm so confused. So,
Huge fan. I
you
stand.
stand Jollibee. I knew you were going to say some stupid shit like that. I knew it. I knew it was coming. Okay, let me try this. Let's go. Wow.
You didn't like it last
Stuff at the
time.
bottom, yeah.
You like it now? Oh yeah. Thank you.
So today, I'm just going to jump right in because today's story is very scary. There's a reason I'm filming this during the daytime because Abyss got scared last night when I was reading about this. Normally, if you know anything about me, it's the fact that really clumsy. But it's also the fact that I feel like since I started this channel, I've always had a difficulty believing in ghosts. You know, I try to do these paranormal stories, but I just don't get as into it as I do true crime. I mean, don't get me wrong, I get invested, I get emotionally all up in there. Something about it doesn't hit the same as true crime, because true crime just ignites this feeling of, first you've got empathy and sadness, and then you've got, you know, fear, and there's just a lot of emotions. But with paranormal stuff, I just have a hard time believing that it's true. And I know a lot of people believe it's true, but it just takes me a minute. Recently, more and more so the past couple of months, I've been under the impression that energy is very important. And this is important because that's the main thing a lot of like paranormal detectives they believe in, which is that it's the energy that's left behind that's causing these experiences of paranormal activity. That is the crunchiest chicken. Wow.
Good for you, Jollibee. Good for you.
Wow. I mean, it's so juicy.
So we're talking about ghost stories?
I believe that people leave behind energy, whether they're still alive or maybe they pass. I feel like that energy kind of sits in that place. So I wanted to look up the psychology of why certain people see ghosts more than others. Because 1 out of 5 Americans believe that they have seen a paranormal ghost of some sort, or an app, like a, whatever you call it. So why is it that 1 out of 5 people, they have a much larger tendency to see these things? And it's not like these people work at cemeteries. It's not like these people work at morgues. Like just 1 in every 5 Americans believe that they've seen a ghost.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of psychology behind it, and it gets really, really interesting.
The other 4s are missing out. Honestly.
Have you seen a ghost? No, you
I've
saw
never seen
some
a
lights
ghost.
in a hallway.
Yeah. I've seen weird things, but not a ghost.
So the main thing that people usually associate with seeing a ghost is a sensed presence, which means that you sense that someone is near you, or looking at you, or hanging out behind you. And apparently there's a lot of psychology behind the idea of sensed presence, and they've done a lot of studies on it. And one of the main things is typically it happens after you've been isolated emotionally and physically for long periods of time. And that doesn't mean that you've been like kidnapped and hidden in a bunker. It just means, for example, did you know that most American widows or widowers, the people that are elderly and their significant other passes away, not when they're super young, typically what happens to them is that they don't want to go out. They don't want to go and meet people. They just want to sit at home and they want to go through the grieving process. This is completely healthy and normal. But because they isolate themselves from social interactions inside of their house where there's not a lot of physical stimulations, so meaning that nothing's constantly moving inside of your house. Whereas if you walk outside and you're at a busy intersection, you see all these things moving. And so that's why a lot of the times you'll be visited by your past loved ones. Sensed presence happens when you are feeling high levels of stress or anxiety, typically in a environment that has very low social and mental and physical stimulation.
So you
Does that
feel
make
like
sense?
someone's visiting.
Or you truly believe it happened. So there's 3 ways to approach anybody who's ever seen a ghost. And it's the fact that 1, they did see a ghost, because you can't prove that they haven't. Or B is, for whatever reason, they truly, truly believe that they did see a ghost when maybe they didn't. And then the third reason is they're lying about it. They know they haven't seen a ghost, but for whatever reason, they're making up this lie. So those are the 3 ways you should typically approach a ghost subject. They say that's why a lot of the time significant others, after they lose somebody, they go through the grieving process, they isolate themselves in their home, and because they have high levels of stress and grief in a low stimulating environment, they start either sensing their loved one's presence or they actually see them. It's very intense stuff.
That makes sense.
This is what I read. This is not how I feel. They also said, a lot of psychologists said it also applies to religious moments. Because typically when people see people through religious moments, maybe religious figures, this is not my opinion, I am not very religious, so I have no idea, is usually after long periods of either fasting, which would equate to high levels of stress in your body, and typically through long, prolonged periods of isolated meditation, whether it's prayer or thinking, you know.
And then you start feeling something?
And then you start either seeing, you know, this person telling you like you're on the right path, or they give you a sign, you know, or you, and see, that's crazy because you could either say it's psychology, or you could say that's just how the world works, you know, whether you saw the sign, like it's still a sign, even if your brain made it up, no?
Yeah. That was deep.
Thank you.
And the brain does very, very interesting things. So I'm going to give you guys a science experiment that they did on a bunch of people who they believe wholeheartedly. They're like,
Listen, babes, a ghost is a real ass thing and they exist.
and so they brought in all of these people and they were asking them like, why do you think spirits exist? Why do you think? And they all had these very, very good answers to it. And so what they did is they had a couple psychologists and scientists. They sat down in a room with this person and they would isolate them one by one.
Okay.
And they had 2 robots. So they would sit on a chair like this. And in front of them would be a sensor. And they would do like a hand motion like this. And then behind them would be a robot that would do the same motion on their back in real time. But then the minute that they slowly delayed the robot a little bit, the brain, the people that were going like this, and then the robot was a little bit off timing, the people started panicking. And they'd go, okay, they were blindfolded, by the way, and they'd be like, okay, I feel like there's a lot more people in this room.
That's so
And the scientists
weird.
were like, no, it's just us. Like we said there was going to be. And they go, no, I feel like someone's here watching me or something. And the scientists were like, that's so interesting, you know? And some of them even had to leave the study because they were so paranoid. Like they started getting anxiety from it.
Hey, we can do that right now.
No.
You're blindfolded and I'm doing this.
Yeah, so it's like something about that delayed response in a human's brain makes you feel like, what is going on? And it's also because of something called, did you know a lot of people see faces where there are no faces?
Yeah, because I see that all the time.
On my face?
No. Yeah, you look for the pattern of face, right? I do that all the time. Like I see a face on the floor all the time. Why is that? Just we're looking for faces all the time?
So the faces thing is more about when there's low levels of light and visibility, your brain kind of fills in the rest. And faces are something that you see so often and regularly that's not shocking that you immediately want to make that a face. The reason that a lot of people see ghosts, especially in areas where you would expect them to see ghosts, is because of something called agency detection, which means, let's say you're running through a cemetery. Please don't run through a cemetery, but let's say that you are. Okay? You're running through a cemetery and you feel a little bit of rustling behind you. Now, option A is that it's a squirrel climbing up a tree. Option B is that it's your dead relative coming up to tell you, hey, be good to your mom or else I'll kill you. Which one is a lot more dangerous? If it's option A and you keep walking, nothing happens to you. But if it's option B and you just keep walking casually, something very bad could happen to you. And so your brain makes the decision for you to panic. Because the risk of not panicking is so much greater than the risk of actually panicking and running. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
And so it also happens, they did a study where they took 2 groups of people into a cemetery. And the first group of people, they didn't tell them anything. They just said, yeah, there's a lot of people that died of, old age here. It's just a nice place. We're just going to take a little walk. After the walk, a lot of them didn't report feeling scared. They all just said, yeah, it was chill. It was kind of sad seeing all the, tombstones and stuff.
Yeah.
And then they took in a second group of people and they said, there was a girl who was brutally murdered here. And it was because, she was young, she was in high school, and her boyfriend had cheated on her, etc., right? And they went through the same walk in the same cemetery at the same time. And when they got out, a lot of people are like, I feel like I heard a girl crying, And it's not because they're liars. It's because when your brain is told you to feel something, it's human nature to start feeling those things.
Oh, you've been reading a lot of psychology books, huh?
Okay, sorry.
No, it's very interesting.
So with that being said, we're going to be talking about one of the most haunted places in the world. Just casually. Let's get into it.
So is it haunted or is it because what they told them?
See, it's hard. It's hard to tell.
Okay.
You just can't, there's no evidence that it is haunted or that it's not. See, nowadays I'm on the fence of both. So what a lot of these, paranormal detectives, they say it's energy left behind. So imagine every time someone with bad energy walks into your home, you feel the need to sage it. You feel like, or like walks into a room, right? You feel the need like, whoa, this person seems aggressive or this person seems
like very negative and you feel it. But imagine if something just very tragic happened in that room also. Why would you not feel the energy afterwards?
Sure.
So that's what a lot of people are saying. This is taking place at a place that a lot of energy is trapped, and that is a hospital. I actually heard cemeteries don't have a lot of bad energy because they come after they pass.
I feel like America, it's not that bad at all.
Right.
The cemetery here is all like very neat and clean in public area and very pretty looking. But in Asia, in China, very scary.
Why? What does it look like?
Nobody really sees it like that. Like just, you're driving, you don't just drive by a cemetery. In China, it's all, nowadays it's all, you're in the little drawer, in the storage place.
It's not
like,
a U-Haul, bro.
it looks like a mailroom though. Old school, it was more on the, just on
Oh,
top
on the
of
mountains.
the hills. Yeah,
With
mountain.
the hill on top.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I used to go
always
every
wondered why.
summer to see my great grandpa.
Oh. It's always the scariest when we go see one of my grandpas on my dad's side because my grandma wanted to be buried next to him. She's alive and well. She wanted to be buried next to him, and so...
Oh yeah, they reserve the spots now.
No, but they wrote her name and her birth year. They haven't wrote...
Yeah, they fill it in. Yes.
I'm like, that's creepy. I would not want to visit. If you died first, I wouldn't want to visit you and just see my name right there. Like, I'll be right back. Just
Why?
hold my spot.
Yeah, hold the spot.
I call dibs.
That's nice.
Like,
no?
why can't they just put a tombstone and not engrave the name yet?
Then there could be some other girl.
Biss.
No.
My grandpa, he was a solid man, okay? Don't come from my papa like that.
That's why they'll reserve the seat for you. When you go to movie theater, hey, hold my seat. I got
Oh my
you,
god,
baby.
imagine what if we all went and one day the name was changed from my grandma's name to like a different family member who's younger. And then they're like, what the fuck?
Okay, this is really kind of insensitive, but let's say it's a story.
This is really insensitive. We're gonna get canceled, but here I go.
No, but let's say your grandma passed, right?
Yeah.
You go to the grave, realize the name has been changed. And you came home and grandma just sitting there.
Because she killed someone else.
No.
I couldn't find my spot.
Oh my god, no. Oh my god, no. This is only funny because my grandma's alive. Do you guys think it's weird to reserve your spot, or do you think it's okay? Do you like visiting a cemetery? Some people think it's cool.
Cemetery?
Yeah.
I thought it was cool growing up. It's fun. It's like a little hiking trip, you know?
Honey, you... Wow, Mr. Mango got canceled. Who is this dude? Canceled. This takes place in a hospital inside of Ohio. Now, here's the very interesting thing about hospitals. You have a lot of birth in hospitals, but you mainly also have a lot of pain and a lot of death in hospitals, especially the ones that were a little bit older. So this hospital, I don't want to name the hospital, but it was a massive compound. And so they had a lot of emergency rooms. They had, buildings where they just had family doctors. And they also had a building that was a morgue and was a psychiatric wing of the hospital, but they had shut those two wings down, and so they had moved the morgue to somewhere else, and they also no longer have a psychiatric ward. And so those were abandoned buildings, but the hospital didn't want to tear them down yet because they had so many patients that were just staying there long term inside the other buildings that if they were to bring in construction crew, that's so much liability, there's just a lot. And so they had just decided that they were going to board up the windows, hire a bunch of security, and the security officers would make sure to put into their rounds to check out these abandoned buildings to make sure nothing funky was happening. And what I mean by funky is not paranormal. What I mean is, a lot of sometimes abandoned buildings will attract people who want to do illegal things, and they have a little hideaway to do it, or it could attract a lot of people who are trying to steal like piping, like copper wires and shit, to sell it. And so the security would have to do rounds every single day to make sure nothing suspicious was going on.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
Can you not sing so creepy?
Even this is so good.
Yeah. We ate one in the car. That's why there was only two. They usually come in 3 for the little family plan. Did I say family plan? Am I a mom calling Verizon? I meant family bucket or family pack or whatever. And so at this hospital, they just hired a new security officer by the name of Rebecca. Now, Rebecca has a degree in criminology, and this was like her first couple of months on the job. So she never really believed in paranormal stuff. She believed that there's criminals and non-criminals, and that's about it.
She believes everybody's a criminal.
The more you get into the center of the chicken sandwich, the better it tastes. She would go through all of these different abandoned buildings that need her security card, her security key, go through haunted elevators, supposedly, that people would tell her, in these abandoned buildings that only she could operate with the security key. And she used to work the night shift because she had 2 daughters. So during the day, she would stay home with them and take them to school. And then when they went to sleep, she would go to work. She was a hustler. And so at this point, it's a couple months in, and she just remembers, even though she doesn't believe in ghosts, that there's this one part of one of the abandoned buildings that just creeps her out more than the rest. It just makes her a little bit more uneasy than the rest. And it's because every time she would go in, there's no AC on, but that room would be especially chilly. Wow.
What about our bedroom? It's especially hot. Is there
Honey?
something wrong with that?
No, because I set the temperature to that room separately.
This room is chilly. Do you believe in that when something's chilly, that it might mean that there's somebody's there?
Mm-mm.
What do you think it is? Just like an open window?
Just like airflow, you know?
Really?
Or somebody passing gas.
And so one day, night shift, she walks into the abandoned building. She's doing her round. She has this little flashlight. And she opens the door. She screams and drops her flashlight because she sees that the entire room is a massive infestation of bugs. Like, she's talking ceiling, walls, ground. And she screams, drops her flashlight, picks it back up, and looks again, right? As she's about to walk out of there.
Yeah.
And all of it is gone.
Okay.
And so she feels like, this is so strange. This is very alarming. This is incredibly scary. I have to leave. And so as she's about to walk away, she starts hearing this voice. Now, it's not like she hears it in her head. It doesn't seem like it's like one of those voices that you see in those paranormal movies, like, where are you, you know? But it was just kind of like,
Help! Like, come find me, help me.
and it sounded like a young girl. And so she always felt like this kind of hit her in that motherly spot of like, if this were her 2 kids, if someone, I mean, this is an abandoned building in a hospital. So, you know, if someone could somehow finesse their way into this abandoned building and they were a young kid, it's very dangerous. And so she starts looking and looking and looking. And then after a little while of looking, she realizes that there's no one she's looking for. But what's even creepier is that during all of this, as, you know, someone was screaming, help me, come find me, please help me, her flashlight would keep breaking. And she kept, you know, trying to like redo it like this and like put in the battery, took it out. And a lot of paranormal investigators, you know, they kind of heard about this story and they said it all comes down to the fact that when there's bad, or not bad, but energy gathered in one spot, let's say there was a girl who traumatically passed in that building. If there's energy there, for that energy to do something, they need more energy. And that's why that's, you know, the whole thing of whenever you see a ghost, your lights flicker and stuff.
They're taking my electricity?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's what the investigator says. Honestly,
Interesting.
you sound very sus. You sound like you don't believe it. You're like,
LADWP would never do that to me.
okay.
Okay. Do they take your energy? Like my energy?
Could be.
So these people are called, what is it?
Investigators, paranormal investigators.
It's a real occupation?
Like I had mentioned, she doesn't believe in ghosts. So at this point forward, she goes back to the main area of the hospital and she starts really just feeling shitty about herself. She's like, listen, I'm honestly losing my marbles. I need to get more sleep. I need to make sure that I don't lose it and think that I'm seeing ghosts just because it's an abandoned psychiatric ward, right? And so the next couple of months, she tries to get her shit together, tries to be a little bit more ballsy as she's walking through the buildings, when all of a sudden, hospital dispatch that has she has a little radio here. They say, hey, make sure to check out someone stuck in elevator D in building D. And she's like,
Building D?
she's like, building D, that's the abandoned building. And then she's like, are you sure it's building D? And they go, yeah, they're stuck in building D, elevator D. And she goes, are you positive? Because that elevator doesn't work for anybody. So the way that it works is that a lot of the hospitals that are actually in motion, that they have patients and nurses working there. And so she makes her way over to the abandoned building and she's like, you know, it probably is maybe somebody accidentally snuck in there. Maybe, you know, she thought it was a a drug addict because she had to take a lot of those out of the building, you know, because they would sneak in, they would do their drug business in there. And so she's like, it's probably one of them, like pushing a bunch of buttons. So the way that the elevators work in the abandoned building is that the security have to go through all the floors of the abandoned buildings. And the best way to do that is to take the elevator. But they don't want the elevator to normally be working like it did in other buildings. And so they need a very, very special key. They press it. Otherwise, the elevator just stays open. Like if you've ever been in like a warehouse, it just stays open, you know? And then you go in, you press it, then it'll move, and then it'll just stay open. And so she's like, okay. So she makes her way over there. She gets to the elevator, and it's wide open. And there's no one in there. So she's like, okay, this is really stupid. They probably got the wrong elevator. Maybe they're new, right? And so she walks back to the building, and she starts hanging out with her close people, which was, I believe, 2 cleaning ladies at the hospital. And so they're all talking when all of a sudden the radio comes in like, hello, did you check out elevator D? Like somebody's stuck in elevator D. Can you help them?
Yeah.
And she's like, what are you talking about? And then all of a sudden they can hear a woman's voice because it seems like the hospital dispatch also is listening to the call box of the elevator while they're radioing. And so she's screaming like, help me, and she's frantic.
Oh my god.
And so she's like, are you sure it's elevator D? I just checked elevator D in building D. Are you positive? And he's like, I'm positive. This is where the call is coming from in the call box. Go, go, go. And so at this point, she's a little bit hesitant. She's a little bit scared. And so she turns to the 2 ladies and she goes, come with me, guys. Come with me.
Okay.
And so, you know, obviously they're in a hospital. There's a ton of people. There's a ton of patients. And so they're like, yeah, it could very well be a patient. So let's go help her, you know?
Okay.
And so they all run together to the abandoned area. And they get closer to the elevator, and immediately, the elevator's not in sight, but immediately as they're getting closer, they smell something weird. And they're like, this is a very, very strange smell. And so they keep walking, and they keep walking, and they get to the elevator, and the call person is still on the call and saying, like, please help me, help me. And then the minute that they see the elevator, silence. But the elevator is closed. And so it seems like maybe someone is there.
Okay.
And so then they press the button to call the elevator back. And then all of a sudden they hear from the call box like, my child, my child. And they're like, okay, that's very specific. Maybe it's a woman in labor who decided to walk around, got stuck in this elevator. Now she's in labor. Maybe it's a mom that just had a child and she's kind of losing her marbles. And so she walked into this abandoned building. And so they're all kind of freaking out and they're pressing the button to bring the elevator back down to that floor. And they're waiting and they're waiting and they hear her and they're like, okay, what do we do? Like none of us are nurses. Like how are we going to transport her back if she can't even move, like can't walk, you know? And so they're thinking all of these things and all of a sudden silent. And then they hear the elevator come down to the floor and it opens and nobody's there.
Okay.
And so immediately she grabs her radio and calls hospital dispatch and says, hey, I got to elevator D. Again, are you sure? Because nobody's in this elevator.
Yeah.
And then the dispatch says, hey, I just got to my shift. Nobody knows what you're talking about. And she said, you guys just called and said that there's someone stuck in elevator D of building D. And he goes, no, everyone here has no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, what?
And she's like, but I heard it, right? And then the cleaning ladies are like, we heard it too.
Yeah.
And they're like, we never radioed you. And so they rush out of there as soon as they can. And at this point, Rebecca, she had been on the job for a couple of months and she decided, I just can't do this. Like, I'm losing my brains. I don't believe in ghosts. This is ridiculous. And so she has to be transferred to a different hospital. But even then, she has this feeling, this like inkling of like, am I crazy or am I not crazy? You know, like that's the worst feeling of like, am I crazy or not? Like that's the worst. You'd rather either know you're crazy or know you're not crazy. And so she starts working security at a nearby hospital and she decides, you know what, I'm going to call a paranormal investigator just so I can sleep at night. And so they go to the hospital and she was shaking. Like the paranormal investigator was also interviewed and he just said that she was just shaking so much. Which is so strange, you know, for someone who's a security officer, has a degree in criminology. Like, you're not, like, this ain't no Stephanie Sue. Like, she's not, like, some, I'm scared of ghosts, ass bitch. And so they walk in there into the abandoned area, and he had brought a video camera, and he bought this toy. Now, this toy is a very specific type of toy that I didn't know existed, but it exists in the paranormal realm of people who investigate, and it's pretty much a toy that also has alarm built in. So it looks like a children's toy, but if anyone is to come near it or try to pick it up, they have this little light bulb that it's holding in like the shape of a candle that goes off and a small alarm sound goes off, right? Because it's saying there's some sort of motion like near me, right? So it has this like detection thing. I don't know how credible something like that is. But they put that there. They started recording, and she was like, "This is the room where everything happened. This is just so creepy, right?" Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, the alarm starts going off. And so then they leave the toy, and they leave.
They ran away.
Yeah. Well, she ran away. He was not as scared. And she felt like this was closure for her because at least she knows that she's not crazy.
I see.
You know? And what's interesting is like, because I didn't really understand the concept of any of this, what they're saying is that psychiatric wards typically tend to have a lot more paranormal experiences than, let's say, morgues or cemeteries, because psychiatric wards, even though there might not be as much death involved as these other places, they have so much energy. Because every person in there typically has immense amount of either emotional energy that they cannot really release anywhere.
Okay.
And so all of that energy kind of stays there.
I see.
And when you bring in other sorts of energy, that's when they say something could happen. It's very interesting because like I normally don't believe in ghosts, but I also lately am understanding the idea of like people have energy.
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know.
That's creepy.
I don't know how to feel about it.
I read a story before. It was a guy who was a little sick and he went to the hospital, and apparently he needed to stay at least a night or two. You know, it wasn't something crazy. It was probably like some heavy flu or something, right? And but then the hospital didn't have any extra beds for him to sleep. There was only one bed. So he walked by a room, right? He saw one bed was open. He said, "Oh, but looks like that bed is empty." The nurse was like, "Oh no, you don't want to take that bed. No, not that one." But in the room, you see there's multiple beds. There's maybe 4 different beds, and then they're all patients laying on the other bed. And then he's like, "What's wrong with that bed?" And the nurse was like, it's just a very scary bed. Like apparently there's people, every time someone lays on it, someone dies. And then all the other 3 people in the room are either super old or super ill, right? And then he was like, "Oh, why? What? I don't understand. I'll take that bed. I don't care. Like I just have some flu. I'll just stay here for 2 nights and I'm out." And then the nurse was like, "No, we don't want to let you stay in this bed." Either way, he insisted. They were like, "Okay, fine." And they look at him. He's like a young dude, and he looks like he's fine. He lay on the bed, and then the first night, all he can remember, he was like, "Dude, this is such a joke, you know?" But the patient next to him just keep on coughing and coughing and coughing. Very old dude, and he's super ill. And then next day when he woke up, he got so ill that he couldn't even sit up. And then before you know it, in a couple of days, he passed away. So he walked in as some flu patient and then died a few days after.
I wonder how much of that knowing the story before laying down also played a factor in your brain.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
I mean, I don't think your brain can necessarily lead you from a flu to death. But maybe it could. I don't freaking know how brains work. Biss, what do I know? I barely have one that works. So I'm really not working with a lot right now. You know? But like, I wonder how much that played a factor. Or like, what if the Gramps next to him was just really sick?
Oh yeah, that's true.
And he was coughing everywhere. And then he's like, "Bro, you need to chill." And then he gets even more sick, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
So like, I wonder how much of that plays a factor. Leave it in the comments. What are your thoughts? And what's like a place you'd be very scared to go to? Let's say you approach a city, everything's abandoned. There's an abandoned school, an abandoned hospital, abandoned psychiatric ward, an abandoned morgue, an abandoned cemetery. Like, which one would you go to last? Like, you're like, "Not today, Bits." I feel like anything with like children's toys, I'm like, "Not today, Bits." I don't want to see no abandoned little...
You just want to go to a haunted hotel. Come on.
No, I hate haunted hotels.
We you gotta just stay one night, 24 hours in the haunted hotel challenge.
See, that's what I don't like. Like these other haunted abandoned buildings, you go in, you get out.
Yeah.
Haunted hotel, you gotta sleep there. I don't like that. I don't like that.
That's the whole point.
I don't like that. So, with that being said, let me know in the comments, and I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.